Welcome back to the nearly 21.9 thousand grimdark subscribers of my channel, and a friendly hello to the 51% who are not subscribed. Today I present a question. What's the deal with Eldar? Through my most recent hobby foray, I have become much more familiar with the Space Elves. I've certainly grown to like them, and much like Orc players with their grots or squigs, and Tau players with their Kroot, the Storm Guardians too have their charm. But when it comes to their rules, I have grown less appreciative over time. It's not that they aren't effective, just look at how the Eldar have been doing in 10th edition thus far. Seems my meme from their index preview was right on the money. Undoubtedly, many players are quite satisfied with how potent the Eldar are, as their present detachment and army rules are strong, and up to the competitive standard. However, I find them to be a bit bland. Really, it's a matter of preference, but this is a video aiming to speak to game mechanics, design concepts, and principles. And so, there is still a conversation to be had. And it begins with...
It's boring. Boring. I'm giving you a boring alert.
Boring. On the army rules front, the Eldar have Strands of Fate, henceforth referred to as Fate Dice. A rule which, over time, has been hit with various nerfs which restrict their application. And I'm not here claiming those nerfs were out of line. With the goal of reining in their potency so the Eldar fit into the golden ratio of competitive balance, those nerfs had a completely reasonable intent. My point is, as a byproduct of those nerfs, mechanical richness was lost from the Fate Dice system, and in turn, makes it less interesting, i.e. more boring. And on the detachment rule front, we have Unparalleled Foresight, a perk which is a strict efficiency booster, helping more dice get through the attack sequence, which, while strong, doesn't offer any system for one to play with compared to detachment rules like Gladius Strike Force or Synaptic Nexus, which demonstrate a fairly common style of detachment rule, which essentially offers 3 army-wide aces for you to play when you deem they would be most impactful. These types of systems add some tasty choice to the player experience.
Yeah, boy.
And while not all detachment rules can or should follow that template, a detachment rule should at least reframe your play experience. For example, we can look at the Tau's Kauyon detachment. It gives all of your ranged weapons sustained hits 1 from battle round 3 onwards, or sustained 2 if that unit is being guided, referring to the Tau's army rule. And while I loathe the design philosophy of waiting until round 3 to gain the benefits of your detachment rule, it is plainly obvious that doing so will change the way you interact with your mission, your list construction, and how you would deal with high aggro melee armies like the World Eaters versus ones which are more reserved. This kind of reframing lens is absent from Unparalleled Foresight, because it doesn't care about the game parameters or dynamics. It simply is. You equip this, and it says you now have greater attack probability, which is why it's boring. That being said, inevitably, the Eldar will get more detachments whenever their 10th edition codex releases. And even if those future detachments fall short of the sheer efficiency gain provided by Unparalleled Foresight's rerolls, and the overall package of the Battle Host detachment, they are very likely to provide alternative options which will at least change the way you look at the game. Though, the same can't be said about the Eldar's army rule.
Same, but different. But still same.
Another brief point I would like to highlight is one of faction uniqueness, and it begs the question, do we need 2 factions characterized by army rules that feature dice swapping with dice from a fixed pool? In fact, I would go so far to say that Fate Dice are actually a poor choice for an Eldar army-wide rule. While it's true, Farseers serve a crucial role for their craft worlds, I don't believe any other faction's army rule is so focused around one individual type of leader. Unless I'm mistaken, every other army rule is centered around a characteristic core to the faction on a faction-wide level. All Space Marines serve the oaths they are sworn to, all Tyranids are linked through synapse, all Necrons have living metal, etc. And in that regard, having dice swapping from a fixed pool seems to me far more fitting for the Sisters of Battle's miracles than the Eldar's Fate Dice, as all Battle Sisters have the faith from which miracles can manifest, but only Farseers see far. That being said, I think Strands of Fate would make for a great ability for Farseers to have on their own, albeit reined in. Here's an idea I quite like, which still allows the Farseers to use their foresight to impact the battle, which could then be boosted when attached to a Warlock Conclave. This, in my opinion, better reflects the kind of potency these command squad style units ought to provide. As for what to replace fate dice with, well, there already was a rule which evoked a unique aspect of the Eldar, one which was widely applicable to the whole of the Eldar faction.
And now comes the interesting part.
Battle focus. As for what form it should take, I hesitate to suggest a practical rules replacement, as so much of the Eldar datasheets revolve around fate dice and your access to them. Though with that said, I do have a concept in mind. Feel free to let me know what you think. Speaking to the flavor text of Battle Focus, I've decided to follow a similar template as the Chaos Space Marines Dark Pacts, wherein, each time an Eldar unit is activated to make a ranged attack, the player is given a choice. Choosing Deadly Serenity gives that unit +1 to hit, and if used after advancing, also grants their weapon +1 AP, which is a valuable bump to any unit's offensive potential. It's the battle focus you choose when trying to squeeze more out of the attack sequence. And to contrast this, Transient Spite allows a unit to move d6 inches after the attack is resolved, though models cannot end in engagement range with enemy models, and it denies embarking into transports and declaring charges. It offers free movement after shooting, and while it's a variable amount, it's fairly unrestricted. It's the battle focus you choose for tactical repositioning, for being a deceptive, slippery space elf. I believe this dichotomy offers some decent design space. Rules which provide assault or allow units to advance and still shoot harmonize well with Deadly Serenity, and Transient Spite, even with its restrictions, has loads of play, such as being able to utilize Overwatch to gain some ground, and the very cool capacity to potentially Transient Spite yourself out of engagement range after shooting in combat, which while being a potent exception, still leaves room to be countered by enemy units through melee positioning and pincer maneuvers. Though for clarity, under such a paradigm, stratagems like Phantasm and Fire and Fade are off the table, since those slippery attributes are being represented here by Battle Focus. But I digress. In any case, at least conceptually, Battle Focus over Strands of Fate is a position I admittedly look at with rose-colored glasses, and so I'd appreciate any longtime Eldar enjoyers to weigh in on the premise. Do you all feel the same and prefer Battle Focus? Or are Fate dice more preferred? Well, that's a wrap on this one. If you enjoyed this video, there are buttons for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to Julius Maximus, as well as my other generous patrons and channel members. Recently I've started doing hobby live streams, so if chill hobby jams are your thing, join in, and let's get those projects done. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next one.